Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. I've wanted to do a series of reviews of Liszt tone poems for quite a while. I do them when they come out because they're pieces that are at once fascinating and frustrating. Fascinating because, well, they're ambitious and because of their historical importance, and frustrating because they never seem to quite come off on disc. There are some good versions of them, principally by Kurt Masur and the Gewandhaus, which is really kind of interesting because Kurt Masur is one of the dullest conductors that ever lived. But when he did his Liszt box of tone poems and pieces for piano and orchestra, he really came alive, and the orchestra played really, really well too. And it's a great orchestra. So that was a good thing. There was also that series with, who was it, Arpaio and Hungariton. That was a good series. Then there were the really boring ones, which is like almost everything else, aside from some versions of Les Preludes and things like that. They are difficult works to pull off. And so when Chandos did all of them with Gianandrea Noseda, the BBC Philharmonic, I said to myself, well, I really should do these. But this was a while ago. I reviewed the first three of them over at Classics Today. And then by the time I started this channel, it seemed like they had disappeared. I couldn't source them. They seemed to be out of print, but they're not out of print. They're still available, at least from Chandos Direct or from the UK. So I think it makes sense to start at the beginning and go through the whole series. It's 5 CDs that gives you not just all the tone poems, but also some of his other orchestral works that weren't part of the official 12, as well as the Dante and Faust symphonies. So it's a major undertaking. And, in a normal world, this would be a big deal. It really would. It was a multi-year project. It would have been something that people really got excited about. Even if the performances weren't always great. It was something to look forward to, something that was a major statement. And it seems like nobody really cared because there's just so much stuff out there and no money to promote anything. And no one gives a damn. It's just weird. Very, very weird. But I give a damn. And I know you give a damn. And so we're going to talk about this series, starting with Volume 1. Which contains qu'on, entend sur la montagne, also known as the Berg Symphony, Tasso Lamento et Trionfo, Les Preludes, and Orpheus. So, how are the performances? Well, the BBC Philharmonic has some quirks that take some getting used to, especially as they're recorded as part of the series. The sonics are very impactful, and that's a good thing. But the orchestra itself has always been somewhat cool in terms of its demeanor, not an exciting band. And the strings are kind of, they need to be fuller and richer sounding, I think, as they are from the Gewandhaus, for example. But the playing as such is very good. It's not like top 5 orchestras in the universe good, but good. And it gets the point across quite well. And Noseda is a very good guide to the music. He's not a snooze fest. He knows how to whip up excitement without being totally vulgar and bombastic. And the recording has enough impact to really show off his ability to interpret each work. So we're in good shape. So the qu'on, entend sur la montagne I love this piece. It's a half hour of nothing happening. It's just atmosphere. Tovey, and in my review, I quote him extensively if you want to see it at Classics Today, but he describes the piece as an introduction to an introduction, to a connecting link, to an introduction, to a series of episodic developments of the introductions. He's right. It shows exactly the problem that Liszt has in these tone poems, which is that he can go on at length without really saying anything. And you kind of feel that he ought to be. This is not beyond disguising with a good interpretation, and Noseda's is a good interpretation. He doesn't rush through it. It takes 28 minutes to 30 minutes. This is 30 minutes, but he builds the atmosphere compellingly. He manages the transitions quite well. If the piece makes you crazy because nothing much happens and it's just atmosphere, sound and fury signifying nothing, well, that's your problem. I just think it's beautiful and fun to listen to. You can also do like housework or other things while it's going on if you think it makes better background music than actually paying attention to it. But, this is Liszt's issue. Trying to create a new form, a new way of developing music that was not dependent on the sonata narrative, which creates this inexorable forward motion. He wanted to find a substitute for it. He never really succeeded in doing it, to be honest. But he wrote gobs of really enjoyable music in the process. So maybe we shouldn't worry about it too much. So that's the beginning. Then we've got Tasso. Now, Tasso is a funeral march attached to a triumph thing. And Liszt is very good at funeral marches. Lugubre, he's one of his favorite words. He's good at writing dark, gloomy stuff, as we know from his late period. And the triumphant, bombastic stuff, well, that was a little more of an issue with him. And this is also a very good performance. Noseda keeps the funeral stuff moving, and he manages to make the triumph part sound successfully triumphant without degenerating into mere noise and bombast. And that's an achievement. It goes to show also that interpretation really matters in these pieces. It's very funny. Liszt never did anything the same way twice in his piano works. He was a classic virtuoso improvisation guy. And every time he played something, he played it differently. And that's why there are 20 versions of everything that he wrote. But when you're writing for an orchestra, you have to put it down once and for all. And that's a problem with Liszt, I think. I think he really had an issue with that because you get this feeling sometimes that he would have done this a little better. Some works, like the Mephisto waltzes orchestrated, have different endings. The Faust Symphony and the Dante Symphony have different endings. He was always trying to rejiggle his forms. And so you need to have a certain flexibility and freedom when you conduct it to give it that improvisatory quality and not sweat the details too badly because, they may have changed tomorrow. So anyway, but it's a good performance of that. Les Preludes is also very good. It rises to a very exciting climax. That's the most famous of all the symphonic poems, of course. No one quite knows what it means, which is an advantage. It is easy to follow the evolution, the transformation of the various ideas throughout the piece. We're not talking about like Free Choice, Les Preludes, or some of the, really glorious versions of it, but this is a really solid, intelligent performance by a conductor who knows how to shape the piece. And finally, we get Orpheus. Now, Orpheus kind of just meanders around. Orpheus has a harp. Well, that's basically all we need. He has 2 harps, actually, in this tone poem, if I'm not mistaken. And it's only 11 minutes long, and it could be a lot longer because Noseda knows that you need to get moving with Orpheus. You let those harps go and just revel in it for 10 or 11 minutes and go home happy. And we do. So Volume 1 is quite successful, and I look forward to talking about the rest of them. It's been fun going back and re-listening to these two because, it's music that it deserves to be heard. It really, really does. Whether you poke a little innocent fun about it here and there or don't take it all that seriously, it's still good stuff and sincere. It really is. And Liszt knew what he wanted. And if he took a circuitous route to getting there, hey, everybody has their issues. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.